Hello, my name is Philip and I'm going to guide you through a simple Pilates exercise program today, using exercises and stretches to strengthen and lengthen key postural muscles. All you will need is a mat. I've got quite a thick mat here, but whatever you got will be fine. It could be a carpet, it could be a rug that you're lying on, just whatever you got, anything that's comfortable. And maybe some cushions. I've got some cushions down here which I will be using in side lying, but for some people you might find you need to use them when you're lying on your back or lying on your fronts. All the exercises will be mat based, will be lying down on the mat, and will be suitable for any level. So when you're ready, let's get started. Right, the first exercise we're going to do is a shoulder bridge. This is a classic Pilates exercise. It is also used in other exercise sort of genres like yoga, for example, but we're going to do the Pilates version, and I'll sort of explain the difference between sort of the two during the sequence. Right, so feet and knees, always alignment first. I want your feet and your knees to be hip width apart, and that's the centre of your thighs. That's what I'm defining as hip width rather than the outside. So it's quite a narrow hip width. So I've lined my heels up and lined my toes up as well. And then I'm going to lie back. I don't need a cushion, but if you find a cushion helps you, particularly if you tend to be looking backwards when you lie on your back, a cushion will lift your head up a little and stop the neck from going into extension. Right, arms relaxed, palms facing up, feet, knees, as I've already said, hip width apart. The curve in your lower back, that's the curve I want to pay particular attention to. I'd like it to be very soft. For most people it will be. When you lie on your back, the spine tends to flatten out. So fingers, I can just get my fingers underneath if I slide them. If the curve is too big, I've gone into extension it, then you can get the whole of your arms. That's too big a curve to start with. So soft curve in your lower back. So first of all, you take a breath in. A nice slow deep breath in, thoracic ideally, it could be abdominal, then zip in, hollow in, pelvic floor, deep abdominals, a co-contraction, those two muscle groups. Breathe out, tilt your pelvis backwards, spine goes into imprint, peel your spine. I'm going to lift up into a full bridge. If you've got any stiff areas in your lower back, you might want to stay with a sort of a lower level. Right, this is a full bridge Pilates sort of style, or what, as far as I would go. Straight line going from shoulder, hip to knee, rib cage soft, pause at the top, breathe out, reconnect your spine vertebra by vertebra. So we're aiming for segmental control of the spine, accessing the more deeply placed muscles. When your spine's all the way down, you tilt your pelvis forwards again to restore that neutral forward lordosis in your lower back, lumbar spine. So it's breath in, breathe out, you co-contract, imprint your spine, peel your spine, lifting. So line of vision, maybe you're just checking down, if you can see your knees, you might not be able to. Ribs soft, as I said before, you hold for a breath in, I'm breathing thoracically. And then breathe out, reconnect. Making sure the knees don't separate or come together during the lifting or the lowering. That's 2 repetitions, we're going to do 5. So number 3, imprint your spine. Peeling your spine. Vertebra by vertebra. And glutes, fantastic exercise for strengthening the glutes, the buttocks. Really important muscles for helping to stabilise the spine. So you breathe in at the top, you breathe out, you reconnect. So I'm slightly exaggerating my breathing, sort of elongating the in and the out breath. Or just put simply, trying to sort of slow it down a little bit. So I've got 2 more to do. Breathe out, imprint, peel. Hold in, check shoulders. Nice and wide and open, and reconnecting. Finish with that forward tilt. Right, 1 more. Pause in. So just to reiterate the neutral sort of alignment at the top, shoulders, hips, knees, straight line, and there's this line of energy I'd like to think of coming through your knees So ribs blending with tummy, tummy with thighs, and this energy line or this length comes through your knees. Excellent. Right, that was 5 repetitions. That's all I'm going to do today. Right, now I'm going to do a hamstring stretch. I'm going to use my hands. You could use a band, a towel, or a belt, but I'm going to use my hands. Hands behind my leg that I'm just going to stretch. Flexing my foot, pulling my foot in, sort of put toes towards my knee. Lengthen my leg up to the ceiling. I'm going to hold it for about 30 seconds. I will be glancing every now and again as a clock to make sure we're holding for at least 30. And when doing a stretch, I will encourage abdominal breathing. It's the most relaxing type of breathing, so it's abdominal, diaphragmatic, same difference. And the more relaxed you are, the more receptive the muscles that you're stretching are to being stretched. And the other leg, I've got mine bent. You could have it straight. It could be straight on the floor. Doesn't matter, personal preference. Any tightness in lower back, quite often people prefer to have a bent knee. Right, that's at least 30 seconds. So I'm going to bend that knee, place that foot down, and just be consistent. I'll do the same on the other side. So I'll keep the leg that I'm not stretching bent, hands behind or band around foot, leg lengthened, straight as you can. If you've got a bit of tightness in your hamstrings, there might be a small bend or even a big bend. It doesn't matter. You work with what you've got as such. So if there's tightness there, just maintain the bend, keep your toes pulled in. Breathing deeply, keeping the other leg in line. Don't let it sort of drift, fall to the outside, which it sometimes has a tendency to if you forget about it or you've got tight muscles on the outside of your hip. So you're just breathing, you're holding. The more relaxed you are, the better. Right, that's at least 30 seconds once again. I'm going to place my feet down onto the floor. I'm going to do one more exercise lying on your back, a pelvic roll or a hip roll, spine twist. 3 different names but the same movement. Feet together, knees together. Arms wide. So this exercise is to help mobilize the spine, thoracic spine in particular, and it's fantastic for strengthening the obliques. This is sort of your middle section of abdominal muscles, your internal, your external obliques, responsible for rotation. It's got a really good toning effect, this movement. So we take a breath in, like we did with the previous exercise. Breathe out. This time it's the roll in. Roll your legs. I'm going to my right and I'm going to turn my head to my left, but I'm not going all the way down with my legs. And I'm making sure I'm keeping my shoulders open and my left shoulder blade anchored. Hold for a breath in, breathe out, legs back and legs over to the other side. You could stop in the centre, but I like to do a full range. When I say full range, I go from one side to the other. So legs roll, head turns. And I'm co-contracting prior to the movement, particularly just before you move. That's when I'd like you to have the sort of the deepest hollowing of the abdominals, zipping also all the time. It's a nice smooth action, legs one way, head the other way. You could keep your head in a fixed position, you don't have to turn your head, you could stay looking up at the ceiling. And then last repetition, I think I went to my right first, but I will be corrected no doubt. So eventually, when you've done an even number, bring your legs back to the centre, and then just a really simple stretch. You can bring both knees in towards you and sway in your legs. So it's not much of a stretch, it's a bit of a stretch for your lower back and sort of a relaxing movement. So shoulders relaxed, legs sway, breathing deeply. Right, finish with that sway. Right, that's the 2 exercises lying on your back. Now we're going to do 2 sideline movements. These really good movements. One sort of mobility of the spine and one's for strengthening the glutes. So similar to what we did on our backs really. Right, I'm going to use a cushion for this one, and most people will. 99% of people that I come across find a cushion helps. It's going to support your head, your neck. So sideline open door is the name of the movement.
So you're on your side. The head, I'd like your head to be on the front edge of your cushion or your pillow. Your legs to be in a tabletop position, and all that means with this exercise is that you've got a 90-degree bend at your hip and your knee joint. It's got one leg stacked on top of the other. Your feet are as far forward as your knees, or your ankles are in line with your knees. Don't have your feet tucked behind you. Fingertips lined up, and then you take a breath in like you have with the previous exercises before you do anything. Breathe out, float your hand, sort of trying to move the arm in an effortless way. Right, if you were very tight in your shoulder and your spine, this might be your limit, it might be full range. I'm going to go further. I'm just going to go until I feel a slight restriction across my shoulder and along my spine, but legs staying still. Don't let the knees lift or the knees separate. I'm holding for a breath in, and then I'm breathing out, returning. And I'm zipping, hollowing. So pelvic floor, deep abdominals, co-contracting. And again, so breathe in first, breathe out when you commence, when you start the movement. Turn your hand, turn your head, look at your head, float your arm, reach your arm, stretching, rotating. Zipping, hollowing, particularly when you return. I'd like to do it on the out breath as well, when you floating your arm out, but particularly when you return. So third movement, floating, turning, pelvis anchored, meaning legs stay still. Arm back. So 2 more. I think that was 3 anyway, so 2 more. So take a breath in, we breathe out, float your arm, turn your head, rotate your thoracic spine, legs, pelvis fixed. Pause in for a breath in. Hands back together, fingertips lined up. Last one, number 5, your 5th one. Hands back together. Fantastic. Right, so that's sideline open door, thoracic rotation, chest stretch. Right, now we'll do a clam or oyster. Right, you can stay with it, you can keep using the cushions if that's better for you, but personally I prefer to use my arm to rest my head on with the next exercise. So I'm bending my elbow, just lifts my head up a little bit. So there's no fixed sort of rule there. Right, clam, feet in line with the back of your body. So I'm just lifting my feet so I can see them. I can see they're lined up, or I could use the back edge of the mat. Waist lengthened. So the top side of your waist will tend to hinge up when you're lying side. So I'm trying to lengthen it so it equals the length on the underside. The rib cage stays soft at the front. 2 sets of 5 is what you're going to do, level 1, level 2. So take a breath in. And when you breathe out, you're going to lift your knee, top knee, as high as you can, keeping your feet lightly together and your pelvis still. Don't let it roll back. And then you're going to breathe in and lower down. And again, breathe out. Breathe in. So that's 2 movements, going to do 5. So zipping, hollowing, we're just bringing the co-contraction, so it's active contractions of 2 really important muscle groups. Lower down, nearly went wrong with the breathing there, so 2 more. So breathing out on the way up, in on the way down. And it's full range. There's not many exercises where I ask people to lift as high as they can or move as far as they can, but to get full range, then get the full benefit, strengthening glutes, buttocks, or the external rotators of the hip joint of your femur. Right, straight into level 2, so without pausing, I'm going to lift my feet. The hip will tend to hinge up, so I'm going to unhinge it, push it away, a bit of tactile pressure with my hand. Same breathing as before, lifting like you did to your full height. Out when you lift, in when you lower. That's 3 more. So I've got my hand on the top of my pelvis. You could have it in your lower back, and that will give you some feedback as to whether or not your spine is moving. It shouldn't be. You could put your hand on your buttock, and then you might get a bit of feedback there, so you can feel the muscles tightening, tensing, contracting. So one more. I hope I've corrected countly, but I may not have. Right, so that's 2 sets of 5, 10 repetitions in total. Right, let's do one stretch before we turn over. Front of thigh stretched, any muscles that go over your hip joint or your knee joint. Hold your foot with your hand if you're able to. It might be you've got a band around your ankle, in a similar way to when you did the hamstring stretch, so using a band to assist. But if you can, hold your foot, pull your leg as far back as you can without there being any compensatory arching of your back forwards. I'm doing that now. I'm sort of moving my spine forwards. I'm going to soften the curve so the ribs stay soft, the pelvis is tucked backwards, and the stretch is more focused on the thigh, which is where I want it to be, rather than muscles in your back tightening. And just breathing abdominally, so nice and relaxed. And it's about 30 seconds, but I'm being a bit loose with the timing here, because I'm not really looking at the clock a great deal. Right, release the stretch by releasing your foot. Right, let's turn over, opposite side, the same 2 movements that you've just done on the first side, we will repeat on your second. So you need cushions again, sideline open door. So cushions positioned, but you can easily place your head on the front edge, legs in tabletop, spine in neutral. So make sure you're not going into flexion, you're not rounding your spine forwards. Fingertips lined up, 5 repetitions. Zip in, hollow in, breathe out, float your arm, turn your head, shoulders rotate, and then the rotation works its way down your thoracic spine. Your hand, it might touch the floor, mine isn't quite touching at the moment. So taking a breath in, breathe out, return. Nice sort of slow, controlled exhalation. So second repetition. So as you've probably noticed, I'm using a double breath breathing pattern with most of the movements we've done so far, except for the clam. If you need to breathe more than, as in taking more breaths, that's absolutely fine. So don't let the breathing detract from the movement. Don't feel you've got to do it on one out breath, as I'm doing here when I reach my arm. Right, 2 more, I think, I hope. 2 more. So number 4. So final repetition. Knees together, bottom knee on the floor, pelvis fixed. Good. So hands back together, and we're going to do the clam or oyster, as some people call it. I tend to refer to it as the clam. Right, so with the clam, I'm resting my head on my arm. You could have a straight arm, a bent arm as I've got. You could use the cushions. Choose what's the most comfortable or maybe familiar, if some of you will be familiar with these movements. So alignment, I've moved my feet back, my feet are in line with the back of my body. That just opens up the hip, and you're more likely to use the muscles at the back, the sort of hip extensors or external rotators in this case. So first 5, level 1 clam, full range of movement. Breathe out, lift your knee as high as you can. Breathe in, lower down. And I'm really concentrating on the counting. I'm determined to get it right without having to make a mistake. So this is number 3. there's a particularly annoying fly in this room, but I will not let it distract me from what I'm doing. Right, level 2 position, lifting both feet, and to make sure the waist is still lengthened. You might need to lengthen it, re-lengthen it if you hinged up when you lift your feet. So 5, that was 1. Last 2. Okay, really good. 10 repetitions, 2 sets of 5. Right, now we're going to stretch front of thigh, so it's quadriceps, hip flexors, and muscles that go across your hip joint and your knee joint. Some muscles go across both, some just go across one. It's not that important. Pull your leg backwards as far as you can, maintaining a neutral spine, meaning all 3 curves are soft. So your head stays in line, don't let your head hang down. Try not to arch your back by pushing your tummy, your ribs, your chest forward. So keep the rib cage soft. Keep your pelvis tucked underneath a little bit. I'm just trying to tilt my pelvis backwards here, just to maintain a soft lordosis in my lower back, my lumbar spine. So just breathe in, enjoy the stretch, relax into the stretch. And release in. Release your foot. Right, 2 more exercises. So fairly short workout today, or program. Right, last 2. First one, I should say, is going to be extension, thoracic extension. Right, you could use a cushion to rest your head on. I'm not going to, but I'm just going to, if you do want to, I'll show you how to. If you were using a cushion, you'd rest your forehead on the cushion, so above your eyebrows. Don't rest your chin on the cushion, that's going to extend the neck. We don't want to do that, sort of counterproductive for what we're aiming for. But I'm not using anything. Right, I've got my legs close together. You could have them close together, you could have them a little bit wider. And I've also got subtle external rotation where my heels are facing towards each other. It's going to enable me to tuck my pelvis and engage my glutes a bit more effectively. Right, arms in an L. So each arm has a 90-degree bend at the elbow, elbow in line with the shoulder. Just getting a bit of cramp in my foot there. Hands spread out, fingertips lined up. Right, first stage of this movement, apart from lining yourself up, is tucking your pelvis backwards. So what I'd like you to do is, what I'm doing now is tilting my pelvis backwards, where I tense my buttocks, and forwards. So it's just doing a basic pelvic tilt. And then the next time you tilt backwards, that's when you're sort of lengthening your tailbone, sort of tucking it between your buttocks. Your buttocks will be contracting when you tilt backwards. The front of your pelvis, the pubic bone, will be pressing into the mat. So that's the position I'd like to hold. Extend the thoracic spine. So this is what we're doing now, level 1 extension. Take a breath in, breathe out, slowly lift, head, chest, shoulders, or head, shoulders, chest in that order really, maintaining a backwards pelvic tilt. Pause at the top for a breath in, breathe out, lower down. And again, so pelvis still tucked backwards, lift head, chest, shoulders without pressing into the floor with your hands or lifting your elbows. Hands, elbows stay on the floor. So it's 3 more. So I'm referring to this as level 1. All that really means is it's a small range of movement. Right, now I'm going to lift up a little bit higher, so I'll call this a level 2 position. So I'm going to lift to the height that I was, and then I'm going to straighten my arms. Right, you do not have to straighten them. If it feels uncomfortable in your lower back, maybe the muscles tighten up, I would say don't lift this high. Pause for a breath in, breathe out, lowered back down. So I've got 1 more to do. So I lift into level 1, you could stop there, pause for a breath in, or I'm going to lift higher. But even when I lift high, the curve, you should see the curve of my spine is a soft curve from the base of my spine all the way up to sort of the top of my head. So there's no steep junctions anywhere. Shoulder blades are stable, low down, returning.
And then when you're all the way down, did that nicely, relax the pelvic tilt, bring your legs together if you separated them as I did slightly. Slide your hands in, underneath your shoulders, pushing up, sitting back. So we've got one more stretch and one more exercise, so we're nearly there. So the stretch we're going to do involves rotation. It's going to be the thread and needle stretch. If you can leave your left arm out in front of you and thread your right arm underneath. Right, this could be it. As I am here, I'm not going particularly far. This could be a good stretch for you, or you might be able to get your hand a bit further underneath and your head a bit lower down, so you're looking towards your hand. You could, I suppose, you could use a cushion to rest your head on here, but do whatever's comfortable for you. Breathe in slowly. And then unthread and changing. So opposite arm, that's my right arm is forwards, and I'm threading my left arm underneath to the side. So it's rotating the shoulder, it's rotating your thoracic spine. So pause in, breathe in. And then slowly coming out of the stretch, unthread your arm. And last movement exercise is a cat stretch. So although I'm calling it an exercise, there is a stretching element in it, a significant really stretching element. Right, start position, all fours, on your hands, on your knees. Hands shoulder width or a bit wider. I've got mine a bit wide here. Arms are straight, shoulder blades are low and wide, knees below your hips. So try not to sit back where your hips are too far back, or move your legs, your hips forwards where you've lost that vertical alignment from hip to knee. Right, zip in, hollow in, co-contracting, pelvic floor, deep abdominals. Tuck your pelvis backwards. When you breathe out, tuck your pelvis backwards. It's segmental control again. Pelvis tucks backwards. You articulate up into a C. That's the shape, the visual shape you're trying to create. Head is hanging loose, low. You're looking down towards your knees. You might be looking down your t-shirt, but you're looking sort of backwards. You pause in for a breath in. Breathe out. Start with your pelvis. So pelvis first, head stays still. Work your way up your spine. So you're coming out of your stretch position and you're returning to neutral. So you're looking straight down at the floor and you've got 3 soft curves. Neck, mid-back, lower back. So cervical spine, thoracic spine, lumbar spine. Breath in again, repeating. We're going to do 4 more. Tuck your pelvis. So once again, like with the shoulder bridge we did earlier, we're trying to access more deeply placed muscles responsible for fine control. And then we get to the top and we've got a beautiful, wonderful stretch, stretching all the muscles that run down the length of your spine. Reversing pelvis first, work your way up and eventually head. Comes back into position, repeating. Right, I think that was my 4th, but I've got too immersed in the movement to really be counting properly. Right, so I'll say this is my 5th, I'm sure it is. So the last one, flexing the spine, but we get to that flex position with control, segmental control. And then return to neutral or a lengthened spine, where your spine is at its longest, but it's not really at its longest, the curves are at the softest. And then when you've finished, that was really good, when you're finished, we're going to sit back towards your heels, if that's comfortable. If it's not, lie down on your front or on your back, but I'm going to sit back. I'm not sat all the way back, just however far back is comfortable for you. One hand on top of the other, and resting your forehead on your top hand. Just check shoulders relaxed, and we're just going to use this position, this is your finished position, just to slow everything back down again. Breathe in deeply.
So breathing deeply, breathing slowly, being aware of the speed, the depth, the sound of your breath, even a visual, even try and visualise the areas that are moving. Maybe if you're breathing into your tummy, maybe the tummy's moving. If you're breathing into your rib cage, there might be a bit of lateral movement with your ribs, but just slow and deep. Right, you can stay there for as long as you like. I, however, am going to come up and just say thank you very much for following the exercise routine that we did today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click the like button, and I will be posting more content very soon. So once again, thank you very much. See you soon. Goodbye.